Welcome, everyone. I now call the September 3rd, 2024 regular City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, we'll take a moment to take roll of the council members by position number. Please say here when the city clerk calls your name. City clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Zorns?
Here.
Mayor Thompson?
Here.
Councilmember Alders?
Here.
Councilmember Kurd?
Here.
Councilmember Menke?
Here.
Councilmember Dodd?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Before we continue with the rest of the agenda, I'd like to reiterate some meeting guidelines. For remote meeting attendees, speak clearly and pause frequently. Please mute your microphone when not speaking. Also, as we are in election season, I would like to remind everyone of certain campaign-related restrictions regarding public comment on ballot measures or campaigns. State law prohibits campaigning for or opposing any ballot measure or candidate during any portion of the council meeting, including the public comment portion of the meeting. First up is meeting agenda approval. Are there any changes to the meeting agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public engagement opportunities. We have the Bothell Business Insight Survey. It's up through September 30th. Bothell business owners can inform the city's first economic vitality plan and shape our future by taking 10 to 15 minutes to complete the survey. The Bloodworks Northwest Blood Drive is on September 9th from 9:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon at the Bothell Police Department Community Room. You can donate at the Bothell Police Department's mobile blood bank and give the gift of life. You can sign up for an appointment. We've got the Bothell Small Business Workshop Series on Wednesdays, September 18th through October 9th here at Bothell City Hall. In collaboration with One East Side, this workshop series offers a comprehensive guide for new or aspiring business owners at a significantly subsidized cost. All right, we have one proclamation on the agenda tonight. And I'm going to wrangle papers for a second. This is for National Suicide Prevention Week. Whereas suicide remains the 11th leading cause of death in the United States and the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 10 to 34, and whereas in the United States, over 49,000 people died by suicide in 2022, an estimated one death every 11 minutes, and whereas suicide rates increased 37% between 2000 and 2018 and decreased 5% between 2018 and 2020, however, rates returned to their peak in 2022. And whereas suicide rates in Washington state have been higher than the national average for more than 10 years, and in 2022, 1,243 people died by suicide in the state of Washington. And whereas the stigma associated with mental illness and suicidality works against suicide prevention by discouraging persons at risk from seeking life-saving help and further traumatizes survivors of suicide. And whereas resources such as the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline are available for anyone thinking about suicide. The 988 Lifeline is free and confidential support available to everyone to call or text 988 or chat online for mental health crisis support, including thoughts of suicide, substance abuse concern, or any type of emotional distress. Direct support is available in English, Spanish, and American Sign Language, and interpretation services are available for more than 240 languages and dialects. Now, therefore, I, Mason Thompson, Mayor of the City of Bothell, do hereby proclaim September 4th through September 10th, 2024 as National Suicide Prevention Week, because addressing the mental health needs of seniors, adults, youth, children, and families is fundamental to building Bothell's beloved community. And we have Mark here from NAMI East Side, the Executive Director. Hi, Mark, who is going to accept and say a few words along with volunteer Joe Stevens.
Good evening. My name is Mark Uman, and I'm the Executive Director of NAMI East Side, the East King County affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. the nation's largest grassroots mental health advocacy organization. Thank you, Mayor Thompson and council members, for the opportunity to speak today and for recognizing National Suicide Prevention Week in Bothell. This week is more than just a date on the calendar. It is a powerful call to action, reminding us of the ongoing work needed to support mental health and prevent the tragic loss of life to suicide. Suicide is a deeply personal issue that impacts so many in our community, often in ways we do not see or talk about. In any given year, 1 in 5 adults and 1 in 6 youth experience a mental health condition. These are not just statistics. They represent real people, our friends, family members, and neighbors, who may be struggling silently, feeling isolated, or unsure of where to turn for help. At NAMI Eastside, we are dedicated to destigmatizing mental health so that everyone in our community gets a chance to live healthy and productive lives. We believe that every person deserves to feel valued, supported, empowered to seek the help they need. We also believe in taking concrete steps to make this a reality. This Saturday, September 7th, we are holding a suicide prevention class at the Together Center in Redmond called Safe Talk. This free class is open to anyone interested in learning practical skills to help those who may be struggling with suicidal thoughts. We encourage you to attend and to be part of our community, creating a compassionate and informed community. Additionally, on October 10th, which is World Mental Health Day, NAMI Eastside's annual gala will celebrate the power of healing through connection. This event will provide a chance to come together as a community to support our shared mission of ending the stigma around mental health. Your involvement will help us continue our critical work to improve mental health for all residents in Bothell and beyond. Finally, I want to express my gratitude to Mayor Thompson for this proclamation, which underscores the importance of addressing mental health for everyone in our community. It sends a clear message. Bothell is committed to being a place where every individual feels safe and has access to mental health support. Let's use this week as a catalyst for ongoing conversation, advocacy, and action. Let's pledge to make mental health a priority every day, to reach out to those in distress, and to ensure everyone knows they are not alone. Together, we have the power to change lives. We have the power to build a community where no one feels alone and where support is always available. Thank you for your dedication and your commitment to this vital cause. I'm pleased to introduce my friend, Bothell resident, and NAMI Eastside super volunteer, Joe Stevens, who is the facilitator of our Safe Talk class this Saturday. Joe is a passionate advocate for mental health and has made it his personal mission to end stigma around mental illness. I've met several individuals who've told me that Joe's work saved their lives. Thank you for being here, Joe.
Mayor Thompson and City Council, I'm proud to say I'm a 40-year resident here in Bothell. I'm very proud of the city. I've had several people visit me from out of state, and they're very impressed with our city that we have here, and I want to thank you for all your efforts. I'm tremendously proud that you see the significance of supporting something like suicide prevention. I kind of center myself around the youth, but I also give suicide prevention trainings for anyone or any organization that needs it. My business cards are on the back there. But the biggest problem with suicide and mental illness is the stigma itself, that people isolate, and they feel like they can't get help anywhere. So what I try to build is a safe community for people, suicide-safe community. I train people on how to pick up on suicide ideations, and what to do if you pick up and feel that somebody is feeling suicidal, how to keep them safe. Because there's nobody who wants to die. Nobody wants to die in this world. They just don't want to live the life they're living. So it's important for us to give them a reason to want to go on. And that's what this training does. It gives people that ability to be able to feel comfortable around the person and be able to ask the question, are you suicidal? It's one of the most loving questions we can ask. And with the high school students, a lot of them say, well, I'm afraid of losing the friendship. Well, if you lost that friendship over that question, was it really a friendship? That's the question I ask them. But I want to thank you for making this a visible thing, because the more we talk about it and the more we get it out in the public through proclamations and whatever, it's the more we beat the stigma. And so thank you so much for all you've done. And I really need that type of support in the business that I'm in. I retired 3 years ago, and I'm working harder now than I was when I was working. But it's on stuff I love to do, and that's saving lives. So thank you.
Thank you. Would you guys like to get a picture with the council? Awesome. Let's do it. in the spirit of bringing things into the light, I want to say thank you, not just for coming here and doing this and the work you do to help make the world a better place and save lives, but thank you also from a position of having had suicide impact my family. And I just want to say thank you. Like, this is not an unusual thing, and it's not something that people need to feel shame about. It's just something people need to get help for. And you all are doing that, and I really appreciate it. So thank you. Councilmember Aldrich, did you want to say a word?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much for being here for this. It is a stark reminder to see this statistic about 2022, because one of those people was my mother. And it is incredibly hard to lose a loved one to suicide. And so I am very grateful for anybody who is working to help people recognize that overwhelmed thoughts do not need to be the end, but that we can all learn to work with those thoughts and feelings. So thank you for your work. And I think it's incredibly important that none of us stigmatize anybody for their efforts to seek out help. And I very much share your vision of a community where people feel safe to get help and without any stigma around that. So thank you.
Councilmember Dodd?
Thank you. Very briefly, thank you for talking about this. Mr. Rogers says something that I love to share because it brings it down to a level that we can all understand. What's mentionable is manageable. And if we can talk about it, we can get through it. So thank you for doing that work.
All right. Absolutely. You do the work you do. You can come here and say stuff whenever you want. And I might be doing Robert's rules wrong, but I don't really care.
I just wanted to mention, thank you so much, councilperson, for sharing that story, because the thing I find, I try to say the word suicide to somebody at least once a day. And I was told that in my initial training to try to do that. And I thought, you've got to be crazy. I mean, nobody will want to be around me. That's a suicide guy. But you'd be surprised. I probably talk about suicide to 10 to 12 times a day. And every time I do, somebody will, that affected me too, my mother or my brother or my sister or my friend. Everyone's been touched by it. It's just they don't feel like they're safe to talk about it. So when you bring it up first, you create that safe environment for them to talk about it. So for all of you who have experienced it, don't be afraid to talk about it, because that's healing. And thank you so much for sharing that. I too lost my brother at the age of 35.
All right, next up is public comment. The city has accepted public comment in writing, as well as accepted sign-up sheets for those who wish to speak at tonight's meeting. Written comments submitted to the city clerk no later than 3 p.m. today were forwarded to all city council members and are part of the record. When the clerk calls your name, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Please note that council will receive your input, but upon the advice of our city attorney, we do not engage in discussion of these topics. Staff will make note of items requiring follow-up. City clerk?
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. We did have a few people signed up to speak tonight, but they were all speaking on Initiative 2117, and we are not allowed to take public comment on that at this time. I emailed them all that was the case. However, I do see Marcia Stedman on the line. Marcia, if you still want to speak, but on something other than Initiative 2117, please use raise hand function, and I'll panel you in and allow you to talk. Otherwise, I don't have anybody else signed up, but if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to speak, please step to the podium, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes. Paul? Mr. Morris? Go ahead.
Good evening, my brothers and sisters.
You should hit the button there, the red button on the microphone.
Oh, okay.
I guess it's not red until you hit it.
There
we
you go. Well, good evening, my brothers and sisters of our community. I'm Paul Morris. I'm a city volunteer with your ham radio team, your CERT team, and other, volunteer groups. I'm here to speak about public access defibrillators placed at all of your city parks. Outside installed. In other words, not locked behind a door or behind a window, but the box is mounted outside. I have had great success with the city of Kirkland. They have acquired 12 defibrillators, and they installed their very first one at the 132nd Square Park there at Kingsgate Totem Lake area. And I've had great success with the King County Parks Department in that they've installed their very first one over at the North Shore Sporting Arena there in Woodinville. Woodinville actually has had their defibrillator up on the wall at their sports stadium for close to 2 years now. And it has not been vandalized or stolen or anything else like that. So it's a doable thing. I just want a unanimous vote of all the council members to approve funding and acquisition of AEDs and have them placed in their city parks. I'm also trying to get the North Shore School District to follow suit and get AEDs mounted externally at all of their school sporting venues. I'm really not too comfortable with the Bothell High School not having an outside mounted AED. It's behind a door. That's ridiculous. Someone goes down in sudden cardiac arrest, it's early compressions, 2 full breaths, and early defibrillation. Ladies and gentlemen, you are involved in saving lives mentally. I'm in the business of saving lives cardiac related, okay? We're all in the same boat. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me build heart-safe communities. I teach it. I teach high-performance CPR. I'm a Stop the Bleed instructor, also part of mental health as well. And so I know my time is, eaten up right now, but please get in touch with me. I just spoke with Nick today out there in the foyer, and we're going to partner on this one, okay? I feel really good tonight. Seriously, in this room, everyone's concerned about saving lives. That's my life mission for 4 decades. I've been practicing, in allied health for 40 years. I love it. EMS, medical assisting, and yes, there's the red light. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to, interacting with Nick, and hopefully we'll get a unanimous vote soon on getting these AEDs.
Morris. Thank you.
I'm done.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak? Nope. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is reports. First up is the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. And we referred to earlier that we're in election season. We're also wrapping up construction season. So I have a couple of quick updates that I wanted to share with you, and then we also have a staff report this evening. So really quick, this upcoming weekend, there's going to be a disruptive maintenance going on where this is listed on our website and is being communicated out by WashDOT. But just to really amplify that message, if you didn't know, between Friday, September 6th at 10 p.m. through Monday, September 9th at 4 a.m., southbound 405 is going to be closed pretty much through Bothell. So from the southbound on-ramp of 527 all the way through 522. There will be assigned detours, and traffic will be routed through alternate routes, but obviously the capacity is not the same as 405. So WashDOT's reminder to everyone is to try and delay trips, take alternate directions, and if you don't have to be out, especially traveling south where you would have gone on 405, the advice is to hold off, and at the end of the day, we'll have a freshly paved 405 south at the end of this, so that'll be good news. More on the end of the spectrum, too, of something that's more behind us than in front of us is wanted to also acknowledge that the first roundabout in Bothell at Meridian Avenue South and 240th Street Southeast opened to traffic at 4 o'clock on Friday. I personal experience, I think I'm now 3 times through the roundabout. So that feels good. Things look good and it's going well. The project isn't quite done. It'll be done at the end of September. You'll see there's actually a contract on your agenda for consideration for some of that follow-up work. So there will be intermittent single lane closures and flagging operations on Monday through Friday hours, trying to avoid the peak times around school as much as possible. We want to thank the community for the patience during the impacts, obviously closing that intersection. I know it wasn't just me who had to alter my way to Safeway, but we all definitely noticed, and I think having it back open will be helpful as well. A few features of the roundabout is just as a reminder, it's our first ever roundabout in the city and something that we will likely see in other locations. We certainly have them around Bothell, but this is the first one in Bothell. It is a single lane roundabout, which allows for 1 lane of traffic to navigate the circle at a time, which a lot of the ones in our region are 2 lane. And so it looks different, but again, once you're driving it, it's certainly does its job. Part of that design of the narrowing too is to really encourage slowing down. We have our reader boards out right now reminding people that there is a traffic revision in place and to be going 15 miles an hour. And really the design of the roundabout does compel you to slow down to that speed. That is done for safety. And as we know, we don't want any collisions. And at 15 miles an hour, the impact is much different than if people are speeding through. And if it was a signal light, for example, trying to make it on a yellow light, it's a very different consequence. Want to also just note some of the things that you don't see. So we get to experience it now that it's open and we can see the roundabout itself, but what you're not also seeing is that as part of the project, an entirely new storm system was installed within the intersection, which is great news. There's 4 new light poles, 1 on each corner, that have been installed. So better illumination at the intersection. And then all within a 4-month period of time in this project, there was excavation and placement of about 1,500 linear feet of storm pipe, 25 catch basins, new hydrant assemblies. There was also grade and installation of 13 ADA ramps and asphalt paths. And much, much more. So a lot of work was done. We're thankful for this project and for the support of it. There's multiple other benefits of roundabouts related to, again, being able to get more capacity through at slower speeds for safety. And if anyone is interested in knowing a little bit more, if you go to our website at bothellaw.gov, /roundabout, you will find that there's also a link on the front page of our website. So both of these projects are front and center on our web right now, and if people do have questions, that would be a great place to go. So thank you for that. And with that, I'm going to turn things over now we have a follow-up on a staff report of something that you last heard about in December of 22 and January of 23, which is the Waynita Creek project. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Amanda to share an update on what's happening next.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. My name is Amanda Royal, and I am the Surface Water Program Coordinator for Water Quality. My position supports the Surface Water Program under the Utilities and Development Services within the Public Works Department. It is my pleasure tonight to provide a brief update on the Sammamish River and Waynita Creek Restoration Project. This presentation is only a staff briefing, and no council action is requested this evening. At an upcoming meeting, I am excited to return with a grant award offer from RIA 8. This grant will fund final design and also the environmental permits for this project. In this briefing, I'll be covering the project area and background, design updates, stakeholder engagement, and also the updated timeline and project funding. The Sammamish River and Waynita Creek project is located on the back nine of the former Wayne Golf Course on the south side of the Sammamish River. During the conceptual and preliminary design process, design considerations were based on the following elements. Within the boundary line, there are 13 acres that are designated for salmon habitat. You can kind of see, if I move, let's see here, you can see my cursor, but it's basically the area that is kind of subset out from the topo map. The project also encompasses the entire main stem of Waynita Creek within the city park. And also the design considers two small drainages that are coming in from the south that connect to the creek underground through piping. Also along the South Sammamish River shoreline, we have 1,000 feet that is included in the design. Oh, wait, let me go back one more step here. Just wanted to also point out that that orange line up there that's closest to the river is the future King County Regional Trail. We also have a few bridges that are on the site, and then we also have a passive use area that's on the west side. Since our last presentation to City Council, City staff continued to collect more data. And with this data, our consultant design team conducted hydrologic modeling to help inform and improve the design. Some of these design updates are examples. The mouth at Waynita Creek, you can kind of see it's a lot wider, it's a lot deeper, and also there's a significant amount of grading right around the mouth. This specific section below the bridge also provides an additional 10,000 square feet of aquatic and riparian habitat. Additionally, grading along Waynita Creek above and below the bridge will also reconnect the floodplain so the creek can pretty much engage with the floodplain. There is no floodplain within Waynita Creek right now. The design incorporates more stream complexity. It adds more meandering and braiding throughout the stream channel. For example, the dashed line you see up there, those are secondary channels that will activate during higher flows to help with sediment deposition. Also, the plan brings in more wetlands. We're going to improve wetlands and also improve and also increase the wetland footprint on the site. I also wanted just to take a moment to say that I did take an opportunity to go around and to visit several jurisdictions that have urban stream projects, and I had a really good opportunity to speak to other stream restoration project managers of lessons that they had learned to help their sites become more successful. It was a wonderful time to be able to see some of the foresight that they didn't see when they were in the design process. They gave us a lot of really good examples, and we look forward to incorporating those suggestions in our project. For stakeholder engagement, upon completion of preliminary design in the spring of 2024, city staff presented to several local stakeholder groups. We presented on the current design updates. We also talked to them about future design considerations. We also received letters of support from several of these stakeholders, basically providing us letters of recommendation for the grants that we were applying for, which was really exciting to have. And additionally, the city sent letters to several affected federally recognized tribes within the area regarding our grant applications. So right now our project timeline is in 2023. Preliminary design was completed. In the summer of 2024, we were awarded full funding for our grant. And this grant, like I said, is going to help us with final design and permitting. In the spring of 2025, we anticipate that we'll begin working on final design and permitting and hopeful to have a final design completed in the summer of 2026. The award to the city was almost $900,000. It was a full award, what we asked for, and that should help us with advancing and completing the design. We will be coming back next week to City Council for consideration of accepting that award. Additionally, we do have another grant that we're waiting for with the Department of Ecology. We've applied for $4 million to start working on getting funding for construction. And I believe that's it. Any questions at this time?
Councilmember Curd.
Thanks. Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm wondering if you could set the stage a little bit about how this project will help affected salmon populations.
Well, as you know, the Sammamish River is a migratory pathway for our salmon. And it also has water quality parameters that are not meeting water quality standards like temperature, dissolved oxygen. This project is going to be a pit stop for those salmon that are going upstream. Part of what we're going to be doing is that we're going with the floodplain reconnection. We're going to be able to provide cleaner water for the salmon. We're also going to connect the groundwater through our stream so we can actually provide cooler temperatures. We'll be putting in a riparian habitat that'll provide shade and also provide additional habitat for the fish as well. Our intentions are to create an area that supports all life cycles, all seasons. This is not just going to be a space that only offers refuge one month a year. We're intending on representing all life cycles, all seasons.
That's exciting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a quick question. The grant that we have applied for from Ecology, is that Climate Commitment Act funds? Do we know?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, I think we're good. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the update. I'm really excited to see this work happening.
Very much. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have council committee reports, community reports, and conversations. Councilmember Dodd.
Thank you. Just under a week ago, we had two NPRSA meetings. So the first was the annual joint meeting with our board and the North Shore Senior Center board. So big thanks to NPRSA Chair Srebnick and North Shore Senior Center board president Bing Tang on just a really smooth joint meeting. I feel like those can be as smooth as you want them to be, and it was really great. We got some updates to share with the Senior Center board about the community center research we're doing, and also got the chance, both our chair and the Senior Center board president just clarified for a number of community members in attendance that the goal is not to replace the Senior Center with the community center. That was that had brought a lot of folks to the meeting, but actually to have a separate facility with different programming. So it was really good to get clarification. And then in our special meeting, we talked through what kind of land we might look at for a community center. The board agreed to look at 2 to 4 acres. And also, because someone asked, we wouldn't rule out 1.9 acres. It was kind of a funny clarification. So I don't think we're in a place to be picky looking for that much land within our boundaries. And then the other thing was working into the next levy cycle, a potential cost-sharing capital grants program that might help repair facilities that deliver senior center programming but aren't under NPRSA. That's very nuanced, and I'm happy to talk to anyone who has questions. And then we are still looking at the terms for the next lease with the senior center. And also we agreed as a board to seek out RFPs for a levy consultant to help us gauge what rate we might want to put in a vote and the timing of the next levy vote. So pretty exciting stuff. And then our next meetings in September and November, we'll talk more about the community center survey results and all that jazz.
Councilmember Curd.
Thank you. I wanted to highlight most of the council I think I saw at the opening of Light Rail in Linwood Mountain Lake Terrace in Shoreline, which was really exciting to see all of you there, and encouraging to see transit dollars that we've been paying into for quite some time at work, and projects being rolled out. I'm really excited, and it's going to come with some updates to the way people get around even in our neck of the woods. And so I hope updates on transit routes will be publicized through city websites and obviously at bus stops. I wanted to bring up somewhat of a conversation that I've been meeting with constituents during the summer and hearing that there's a desire to have a little bit have a conversation. And I know that before the pandemic hit, we had council conversations happening at the Bothell Library. I don't remember how frequently they were, but that was a good space for people to come and bring up issues and have conversations and really be heard and listen as well. So I've been encouraged to maybe try restarting something similar, and I, in an effort to get it on my calendar and just commit to a date, I reserved some space at the Bothell Library on Friday, September 13th, from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. And I'm hoping that other council members are interested in this too, and just kind of want to run it as a pilot, see how it works, see what works for people in terms of timing. I want to keep it kind of light, and in that regard would maybe be thinking about limiting the number of council members to 3 just for this one, and seeing how it works, and if it's successful, and if people are feeling like it's something that they would like to do in the future, then keeping it on a rotational basis. But wanted to put it out there and see what you all thought, as well as get input on if you are wanting to join.
Quick comment.
Yeah.
I participated with that with then council member Doer, who in herself is a force of nature. And she handled, I think it was quarterly that we met. I would heartily encourage that there be a couple council members there just to cover all the bases and have, people fill in the gaps. But, if you want to get it going, great. And I think sometimes evenings are, a good alternative. But no, go for the time you got there.
I'll join you.
Great, thank you.
And I believe from my one-on-one with the city manager, we might get help from our clerk on making sure we don't end up with a quorum for scheduling. But I can join on Friday the 13th. That's a fun start date.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's great. I had been, I'm excited to hear this. The North Shore Senior Center is also not uninterested in hosting us if we need more space options.
Cool.
But yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I had spoken with a couple of city staff or through the executive department to kind of get a little bit more feedback on, then Deputy Mayor Doer, I think, just did it all herself, which is an amazing amount of work. And I think that it would be helpful to have it publicized through city channels and on our calendar, just so that people know. And then also, thinking about locations in the future, if it works well, making sure that we have some good distribution. But just to start out with, I wanted to dip my toe in and see, how is this going to work? What are some community guidelines that we can set up around it so that it's productive and that it's a useful time for everyone? And just, try and see, now that maybe we're more comfortable meeting in person, if we could start something up. So thank you for those ideas, and be looking for a report back.
I'm also not uninterested in attending one of those.
I'll echo that as well.
Great, noted. And again, just dipping my toe in, and maybe we can, we'll talk about logistics and that sort of thing too, but I think it will be helpful to keep it light right now under 3 members of council, and then from there see about other switching members out, a sign-up sheet or something based on availability. So I can work with executive department on that, and on setting up schedule in the future if it's successful. And then also, it sounded like Councilmember Alcabra, Deputy Mayor, wanted to join. Was there anyone else? Councilmember Dodd. Okay.
Was not uninterested.
Not uninterested first. Okay. Well,
I'll stop someday, I promise.
I'll send out an email so that I'm thinking, I don't know if we have to set up the chairs and stuff, so maybe 4 o'clock is when I'm going to be advertising that we'll be there, but 3:30 maybe for setting up chairs and tables. Great, thank you.
I just want to say thank you for spearheading this and giving it a try. I, as a community member, attended those council conversations and started getting to know my council through those. And so I think that they are really beneficial to the community. I know that I benefited from them. So I'm glad to see you leading this. I hope that this is just the first of many and that we find a groove that works for our community. And I really do like the idea of maybe kind of like the way we've done open houses for the city, where we alternate which side of the county line we're on. And so please just, know that I would welcome attending a future one, since you guys are full on. I know how to use positive statements. And yeah, so just, if I could be a resource and a support as you plan in the future, I'd happy to help with that too. Thank you.
Councilmember Zones?
As the sentimental slob on the dais, I just wanted to make a pretty quick comment, just reflecting on summer. I was thinking about government and all that we do here, and from my perspective of faith, government isn't to fill our soul with warm fuzzies, but it is to protect us from, I'm quoting, protect us from terrors. And this August, with our windows all open, we heard first responders very busy. And so I wanted to thank them for being in the trenches while we were relaxing and enjoying our break. First responders were protecting our community. And then Public Works, the thanks are continuing, making hay while the sun shines. I don't know that the whole city appreciates what goes into seizing every opportunity that we can do to make things better, but thank you to Public Works. And last but not least, Parks and Recreation. Maintaining the parks is a huge lift during growing season. And I was thinking about as we work in our parks and our summer nights, that we're trying to find our way on what our brand is, and being summer evenings for and opportunities for everyone in Bothell. And I just want to thank all the work that has gone into our summer nights. I did observe, I went to a kids event and observed children and their parents just in the moment enjoying the being in summer, and it was very, very lovely, encouraging to see. And one thing that I noticed was I started to think, this would be a really keen place to put an ice cream stand and earn a little extra money on the side. And then I looked at the table with all kinds of snacks, and kids hovered around to find out about their parks in Bothell and getting goodies. And it was no charge. They were just thoroughly enjoying it. I thought, no, that's the way to do it. So my thanks to Parks and Rec for what you did for us this summer.
All right. Next up is projected agenda discussion. We have one item to talk about tonight. It's taking a position on Initiative 2117. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have received a request from Councilmember Curd, so I'll turn it over to him to fill in any gaps that I leave, to inquire with Council whether or not you do want to discuss and consider taking a position on Initiative Measure 2117. As we heard tonight, as a reminder, we are in fact limited on discussion of items that are up for vote, and in the memo that's in your packet, it mentions unless specific criteria are met. So the criteria that do exist is around providing an equal opportunity for both sides of an issue to provide opposing points of view, establishing amounts of time for both the pro and con comments to be made, and then also meeting specific noticing requirements so that we make a direct tie to the ballot title and content. So with that, what we are looking for direction from council tonight is to see if there is a consensus on whether or not to take those steps, and we would be looking for that direction along with the amount of time total that you would want to commit a meeting to, so we can make sure that it's balanced between opportunities, and then also what meeting council would want to schedule this for before the November election, if you are so inclined. With that, I'll turn things over to Councilmember Kurt if there's anything he'd like to add. I'll just also follow up with a note is that we're relatively new at this, but the council did amend your protocol manual to take opinions on local measures. I think we've done it once before. What we would be doing, if you're so inclined, is preparing a resolution for and a resolution against, hearing testimony, and then the council would decide which one they wanted to take up. With that, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Kurd.
Thanks. I don't have much to add. Just wanted to say thanks for including the measure in the packet. I had a chance to review it, and the revenue impact as well. I would say that I'm interested in taking a stance on it. I think that we do have packed agendas coming up in the next 2 months, but it would be worthwhile for our community to hear the impact of such an initiative on our city. So I think that it would be helpful to take a position.
Councilmember Alders.
Thank you, Councilmember Kurt, for bringing this forward. And I would be in support of hearing, seeing both resolutions and hearing from the community. I think that there were people tonight who wanted to speak up and maybe urge us to do this resolution. And so I think that providing the opportunity for people to engage in that dialogue with our community is a good thing for us to do. And so I hope that we can find time on our upcoming agenda for this. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Kurd, for bringing this up. I just was wondering, if we go through the process, what impact would our decision have on this, if any?
Yeah, I think, the extent of our endorsement our endorsement on any ballot measure is limited, right? How many people are watching our meetings, how many people are, but giving a local platform for people to hear impact of the initiative, especially while they have their ballots or while they are considering and hearing lots of things back and forth, being able to know locally how statewide initiatives affect operations in the city that they live would be valuable. So that's I guess is a personal sort of preference that I would like to know how seemingly big ballot measures that may have lots of discussion in the big and general state realm. What is the impact here? And I think that City Hall is a good place to have that conversation. So,
to that extent, there are maybe not a question to you, but there are other measures that are on the ballot as well. Are we gonna be talking about those at all? Because I like the idea of local impact of a statewide thing, but so are we going to talk about others as well or no?
Yeah, that's a good point. During my aforementioned tour throughout the summer of talks, I had a couple of people talk to me about some of the other ballot initiatives, and they wanted to hear more about it, and I'm not as familiar with those ballot initiatives as this one is. And so that's certainly, I mean, we could expand the scope of this, taking a position on more than one initiative if you feel inclined, or if that would, but, then we take more time to consider, right? So I think we have a balance between, opening it up for discussion on how the initiatives will impact the city, and hearing, local perspectives, but also making sure that, our already scheduled things can get done. So, whether this would be inside the scope or kind of tangential is a matter of personal opinion, I think.
Thank you. Is that something maybe city manager, or should we consider, if we're going to talk about one, should we talk about more than one? Or because the idea of, and if you say it's just up to council, then that's fine too. That's a good answer. It's just the idea of a statewide decisions that have to make and their impact at the local level seem appealing to me. And there's more than one thing happening on the ballot for November. So I don't know if it's a good idea to consider them all, or is it like too much work and let's focus on the most important one,
So it is entirely up to council. So that is the bottom line of it. I think from your question, if there's an aspect of this of where wanting to provide education to the community, at that point, then I would recommend from limited experience, but that is like reaching out to the pro and con campaigns and asking them to come in and make presentations on both sides of the issue. Again, and that would have to be of equal time. Mm-hmm. And that would be as an alternative. The other time that this council has taken a position in the recent years, it was really more on making available for time to hear from council members and community members, and that was where the equal time came in. But if you're looking for education, I think we'd want to be reaching out to people involved in the campaigns, and then typically they know the do's and don'ts, but it would be limiting then to their materials and their information to give, I'll say, brief presentations. But it would really, again, it boils down to the council in terms of if you feel like that the act of taking a position, pro or con, on any of them, there's an impact that is related to Bothell. That would be ultimately where this council would come in. There's other ways of getting education overall besides watching a council meeting. So that's the balance and tension.
One of the variables mentioned was how much impact that would have on our scheduled discussions that we'll have, comp plan, budget, things. How much impact would it be, or do you not know yet? You need to research it.
I mean, not to give you a consultant answer, but at the end of the day, we schedule the council meetings for the business of the council. So if this is something that you wanted to take on, we would come back with options and alternatives of how we would do that. So you could schedule a special meeting. There's all sorts of things, if that's the interest of the council to do, of how we could accommodate it.
All right, thank you. For this particular one, Councilmember Curd, I'm not opposed to having a discussion about this one initiative. I just wanted to ask about if we're doing this, do the others, but it seems like might be more work than we want to handle at this point in time. But I'd love to hear other thoughts.
Councilmember Zorns.
I, as a policy, feel that unless if it's a ballot measure that's directly part of the city, we should not be weighing in, because you're going to have a hard time getting a unanimous 100% council behind any initiative. And I don't think that you can represent council supporting or rejecting any initiative and be truly honest about that it represents all of council. I will say that for this one particular issue, I remember probably about 6 years ago, I got a call from an elected who was genuinely terrified that our world biology biome was going to completely collapse, and it came from an honest place. And she was genuinely terrified. And I do not want to disqualify concerns that people have over the environment. I have concerns about the environment. It goes beyond just air quality, and I'm sure that's true for you as well. But on discussing state initiatives, I think, if you want to have conversations where there's open dialogue and the public gets to sit in and listen to the pros and cons, great. As far as resolutions representing the council, I cannot support. I hope that makes sense.
Councilmember Mankey? Did I see your hand? Oh. Councilmember
I'll
Bothell?
go, then
Okay.
Councilmember Mankey can go. I don't see a harm in having the discussion. I think it would be good to hear from the committees and from our community, and we can take a position or not. The options are still available to us, and I do like that it's equal time between pro and con. I think that that's really important. So I found it helpful when we discussed the King County levy that we ended up taking a position on, and I think all it can do is add to the discussion. All of our elected officials at the state level are hosting town halls right now. I think adding to the conversation in a measured, sane way will be really helpful. So I'd love to explore it.
Councilmember Mankey?
Thank you, Mayor. I've talked a little bit during prior council meetings about how I feel about state measures, initiatives, and initiatives of other jurisdictions, so I won't rehash what I've said prior. But for this one specifically, I will say that I think that the act itself is very well intended, and I think we all have concerns about climate, and those concerns are good concerns. I think with this initiative specifically, it's being brought by a large number of people within the state for their fellow citizens to vote on. And they're bringing it because they have concerns about the pieces of the bill that were passed. And I think they're being punched in the wallet right now to an extent where they found that it's not sustainable long-term. And I think the state has realized that in refunding some of the climate commitment funds back to those who are most vulnerable. And I think that's fairly telling as well. I won't dwell on that so much. I just think a citizen-led initiative should be a citizen-led initiative, and the state representatives who passed this can share what they want to share about why they passed it and what the money's going for and why it's worth keeping in place. I think our residents are smart enough to read those things, attend those sessions, educate themselves on what this is about, and cast their vote as they do in any vote. I also believe that us telling and taking a position and telling our residents how we feel is kind of like your Uncle Ned or Aunt Nancy giving you their opinion at Thanksgiving dinner when you didn't ask for it. It's just, sharing those things. And there's a saying that I really like, and it's no one really wants to hear your opinion. They just want to hear their opinion coming out of their mouth. And with something like this that I think is fairly charged as an initiative on both sides, I think that's really the case. I would not really want to see us step into that and get involved in that when it's not really within our jurisdiction. I understand we benefit from Climate Commitment Act funds, and that's why it's being brought forward. But with this one, the way it's being brought forward with citizens bringing it forward and the way the state has responded and has not corrected those things but has tried to give some money back, I think it needs to be decided by residents, and I don't see a benefit to us really getting involved in that conversation. We've got a lot coming up. We've got budgets. We've got the CFP. We've got other things coming before us, and taking time to do this when it's really more outside the scope of our business is not a great use of, I believe, our time or staff's time. So I would not be supportive of bringing this back for further discussion.
Is it my? All right. Yeah, I'm very much supportive of bringing this back, especially with what we're doing in transportation. The impacts of this on what we are attempting to do here at the City of Bothell could be absolutely huge to our residents. And I think it would be really good to have an opportunity to hear both the pros and the cons about that. I'm not ready to say yes on any of the other amendments tonight, but I reserve the right to change my mind before next week when I've had a little bit more time to think about that. So that would be my direction, is let's leave the door open on those, and we can have that conversation next week if we choose to. Do you have direction?
Not quite. So we do have the consensus part. So that really what we needed is at least 3 people interested based on the council protocol. But what we don't have is when to bring it back and how long you want to commit to it. I also did, in response to the deputy mayor, I mentioned around inviting the pro-con committees. We can't guarantee attendance, but we can certainly provide the opportunity. But if that's there's been referenced a couple times, but I'm not clear if that's the desired way to do it. So I think the details of how you would want to structure the time, how much time to allocate. So for instance, 10 minutes pro, 10 minutes con for a total of 20, and then which date of which council meeting we would want to aim for. Again, there's 2 more in September, there's 3 in October. I think I've shared with a few of you as questions have come up. According to the King County election site, their calendar was clearer, so I'm sure Snohomish County is similar, but we have a meeting on October 16th, or the 3rd week of October. That's the week that ballots and the election materials get sent out. So somewhere in between today and then is probably when you would want to take that up. But so that's the next pieces that we need, is the clarity of how much time and what date.
Do we have, looking into the projected agenda, do we have more space on one of those dates than another?
No, and we'll shuffle as we can to accommodate anyway. Truly, the budget and comprehensive plan are kind of the big rocks of our schedule, but everything, if we've known about those for a while, that we've seen them coming, so we can be fluid on other items if we need to move.
Deputy Mayor?
The first thing that comes to mind is who's going to be doing the pro and con. Provide, if this is the campaign, then we need to find out their schedule at some point, and I don't know who does that. And depending, were you going to answer that first? And depending on the availability, then we have to decide. Then on that day, or maybe there are a couple of days, then we see what the agenda looks like. Then we determine if it's a 10-minute 5 for, 5 against, or is it 20 minutes? Because we need to have time to discuss as well. Maybe there's public comment around that as well. So it's like 30-minute plus or minus allocation of time. I think it seems like that will be how long it should take. I don't think we should spend more than 30 minutes, but then it all depends on the availability of the people and how long they have, right?
Yeah. So the 2 traditional options would be as either, this is the wrong terminology, but it's what's stuck in my head, but a limited public hearing of where it's not a public hearing on anything in the world, but around this topic of where you could say we're going to hear from 5 people each side. So no presentation, but just simply opinions. And you could say 5 at 3 minutes, so 15 and 15. But we can invite presentations. And again, I think in this season, there will either be people available or not. So I mean, I would encourage, the 2 options would be as either select a date and we'll find a way to accommodate it, or ask us to do a little bit more work, come back next week and see what's available. Staff will reach out to find out availability. I do think I would encourage you to select time, the length of time based on what you want the conversation to be. Don't worry about the schedule of the calendar. So if, like, to your example, if what you would want is something of no more than a 7-minute presentation per side and then an opportunity to discuss or something, like, we'll find a way to accommodate the amount of time.
Councilmember Dodd?
Thanks. I think the date that it happens isn't something that is our specialty in managing. I think that's why we have people who reach out for scheduling with people. So whatever date we can get, I think having if we can, the official pro-con committees is important, right? I think that one of the things that perhaps happens in every election, but that I've seen with these specifically, is it feels like everybody has a different take on what exactly they mean. So getting the official pro-con committees could be really important. And I would also say that we're wanting to hear from our constituents. So I think just standard 3 minutes for everybody, including the committees, would be great. And I think no more than 20, 30 minutes. And the only thing I would say is, however we pick who speaks, maybe random, so that people get a shot at it. If 30 people show up to speak, for or against, that's going to be hard to say. So draw names or something. But I would hate for people to feel like they didn't get a chance that was equal. So that's the only thing I really am thinking about. But I'm very comfortable with our executive team picking the day.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say that like a 5-minute presentation from each of the committees would be, I don't think it needs to be much longer than that. And then I'm fine with keeping public comment to our normal time of 3 minutes, but then, 15 per side. So up to 5 speakers. And, I recognize that just because we plan for it doesn't mean there will be enough people from each side to fill that time. But just to provide the opportunity, so 15 minutes for the public on each side, make sure it's balanced. I think you have a clear idea, like our protocol manual makes it pretty clear how to conduct this. And so, and I don't know, future conversation is maybe we don't need to have this conversation every time about how long the conversation should be, if we could just find a standard that we're going to stick with. But I think what we're discussing here could become that standard. So thank you.
I'm going to throw another idea in, just because why make it easy? I like the idea of setting a certain amount of time, and then for the public comment, adapting the time per speaker to make up for that time. So if we have a whole bunch of people speaking, we'd like to hear from as many voices as possible. So maybe, give people less time per person, and for the same total amount of time.
I'm going to phone a friend real quick. My understanding of this is that if we were to say 15 minutes each, and you had 20 people show up to speak to one side and one person set up to speak to the other side, it wouldn't be the amount of time per person that would be equal. It would be per side. But I'm going to verify that by turning to our city attorney, Eileen Kiefer.
Thank you.
Or we can always follow up.
I think we can follow up. I mean, I've got the statute open. It just dictates that both sides are afforded an approximately equal opportunity for the expression of an opposing view. That can take multiple iterations, as you guys have hit on tonight. But what we're hearing is, we're going to come back to you next week. So I do believe the city manager is correct. We will verify and come back to you next week with kind of what that looks like.
Okay. And people can always submit written comment as well, correct? I mean, they can email us, I assume. They do.
They can email you. Again, we'd have to look at what this looks like. This is one of these very rare exceptions to, normal public comment. Normally, public comment is fairly broad as long as it's germane to city business, but we do have a really restrictive statute here. So we'll come back with more details on that next week.
Okay.
Before we move on to, I want to make sure, I heard two schedule it whenever directions to trusting of the staff to find it, but I do want to know if there's a strong opinion too. So if no one's opposed, okay, we'll come back with a recommendation next week.
Perfect. All right. Does anybody have anything else they would like to discuss under the projected agenda discussion? Seeing none, I would love to accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Zorns and a second from Deputy Mayor Alcabra to approve the consent agenda. Would anybody like to speak to the motion?
I have a note on, I can't even read what page that is. I think it's 29 in the packet. In the minutes from, which meeting is this? I have to scroll up, I'm sorry. July 30th. I believe that Councilmember Minke toured the Crisis Stabilization Center, not the Regional Crisis Response Center. So that would be my only note for the minutes there.
All right, City Clerk?
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councilmember Zorns?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Alders?
Yes.
Councilmember Kurd?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
All right, thank you, City Clerk. Next up, we have a study session. We are going to take a 10-minute break in between now and then. It is 7:12. We will be back for a study session at 7:22. Like that. Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. We have two study sessions tonight. The first one is on the City Hall bond refund study session. And I'm going to kick it over to our city manager to introduce everything.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And this will be the first of two presentations led by our finance director, Mr. Quan Wong. Tonight, as always with these study sessions, there's no action required, but we are teeing things up for the future. And in this case, a little bit of a departure from a lot of the conversations we typically have. There's a pragmatic story behind this study session that really is leading to some pretty near-term action that staff is recommending. So we are looking for feedback tonight on any questions of planned next steps, and make sure that if any decisions come before you, have the information you need to support that decision. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Quan to walk us through the potential bond refinancing for City Hall. Take it away.
Thank you, City Manager. Thank you, City Manager, and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and City Council members. I'm also joined by two of our experts online, Alice Onstack, our bond counsel, and Matthew Schoenfield, our city financial advisor. So they have been helping us in support of the bond refinancing. So tonight's study session, I'm really pleased to update you on our bond refinancing, where we are. And again, the goal is not just to save money, but eventually we will take ownership of the City Hall once the debt payment is made. So we'll talk more about that during our presentation. Again, tonight we ask for your consideration of this proposal, and at the end, we would like to have your guidance on where we should be going. We will be preparing legislation to come back to you next week if it is your direction to authorize the bond refunds. Okay. So having said that, just give you a little bit background of the 2014 lease revenue bonds. In that year, the city worked with our nonprofit agency, the CBO Properties, to really finance the construction of this building. And there are benefits behind that, and of course there are costs behind that. But the city went ahead with the construction using this particular vehicle. And of course, back in 2014, the benefits that we achieved because of this particular structure, it provides a more flexible procurement process for lease finance projects. And the other benefit is to shift the development and construction risk onto a developer. And of course, every benefit, it comes with costs. So one of the costs is the nonprofit issuers are typically rated below the municipal entity that is paying the financing risk and increasing payment costs on the debt. So we paid the debt, and we also pay a higher interest rate because the nonprofit has a lower rate than us. And of course, the project costs, specifically developer fees, are often more expensive. So that's kind of the background. But right now, we are in a position to achieve some potential cost saving. As you may know on the news, that the interest rate may be coming down, so we are taking the advantage of it. So by the advice of our bond counsel and our financial advisor, this is a good time to go back. And of course, the timing is right because the lease finance revenue bonds is callable on December 1st, 2024. So right now we are in a really excellent position to do that and take advantage of the bond environment. So the city, as I mentioned before, has a stronger bond rating. So we will choose to go out to the refinancing using our own credit. Of course, it won't, we already have the debt on our book. So it's not to reduce or increase our debt capacity because the debt amount is already taken into our so-called debt amount. So the projected saving, if we go out in October or so, it will be about $1.9 million in net present value. Or in terms of the percentage, it would be about 5.11%. Again, we will be going to the Moody's credit rating in order to qualify for really a good and strong bond rating for us to achieve the saving. Once we issue the bonds, sometimes in October, we will pay the CBO properties or the outstanding debt. And as a result of that, the title will be transferred to the city of Bothell. And again, depending on the closing day, we expect the title will be transferred to the city before the end of the year. Again, there are a lot of things that we need to work out, and we have our bond counsel and our financial advisor serving as our advisor on this transaction. So with that, again, in terms of the timing, so today we are asking you to consider this refunding plan. And next week, if it is the desire of the City Council, we will bring back the bond ordinance to authorize us to go ahead with the bond refinancing. In October, the date may be still in flux, but we plan to price and sell the bonds in October. And then hopefully the transaction will close upon the bond sales. So with that, I'm available for your questions, and I hope to answer your questions. And if I'm not able, we have Alice and Matthew online to assist me.
Thank you. First question is, are the bonds only callable during a certain window starting in December, or does December open the window and the window is unlimited afterwards?
I believe the window opens, I I think almost like 60 days ahead of the December. And also in the bond ordinance, we'll be asking for up to a year of window in case if things go to the other side, if the bond market reacts in a certain way. So we're leaving ourselves a window before we go to the market, again, depending on how the situation goes. Am I correct, Alice?
I could add in there just to clarify the outstanding bonds that were issued by Cobb Properties, those become callable as of December 1, but at any time after that. And so, we can issue the city's bonds up to 60 days ahead of that or at any point in time.
Okay, I'm curious. The rates cuts are going to be starting likely this month. There's speculation that they could go for 18 months, maybe up to 2 years. Do we feel comfortable that doing it in December is the right time, or might we authorize this and then when the finance department and council feels it's the right time after that point that they can execute at the time of their time of your choosing? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think Matthew can answer that, but let me chime in. Again, nobody has the crystal ball. It could go up or it could go down further. So if, again, depending on the market, and we are observing things are going really well at this point, but if we delayed it, that means the saving will not be realized sooner.
Sure.
So there are really trade-offs if we need to wait or not to wait.
Okay. And then with the new bonds we'd be issuing, do we have the ability to pay them off early should we choose to do so and we have the funding to do so? Or do we need to wait for the extension, the entire length of the bond period before we can pay off the loan?
I think we can pay off the loan once we receive the proceeds from the bond sale.
For the new bonds, the bonds.
Maybe I can.
Matthew.
Yeah.
So the new bonds will be structured in a similar way to the current bonds in that they'll have a 10-year par call. So after 10 years, the city could then call them back and redeem them or do another refunding to achieve additional savings at that time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matthew.
I have a quick question because nothing like making me have to pull out my phone and do some Google searches on some of these terms here. So not my day job. My concern is that with the new bonds, we could be ending up spending more on City Hall versus whether or not we just rode this out. That 1.9 million that you're talking about savings, is that assuming when we take a new bond, we will still come under paying what we would have if we just stayed within our current plan?
Yeah.
And is it an unknown?
Yes, and Matt can go ahead and respond to the numbers themselves, but the savings calculation is based on an all-in cost, comparing all of the costs that the city pays under the current lease structure to what the debt service would be on the new GO bonds.
And the bond ordinance would specify that we wouldn't be able to move forward with the transaction unless the city realized savings.
Okay.
So there really wouldn't be a scenario where we would be able to move forward unless savings were realized.
Okay.
With regards to the debt service.
And then the savings won't have an actual quantity to it, just a stipulation to it.
No,
the ordinance would say at least some savings. Go ahead. We would provide that number, but go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. So in terms of the actual dollar amount, this is what we project as of, I think I had it as we projected it as of August 9th. Even today, we've lost a little bit of those savings based on market rates today when I ran the numbers earlier, but it's still about 1.85 NPV savings million.
Okay.
So, that's equates to $150,000 about a year that goes into the city's budget to spend on whatever, it may choose, or city council may choose.
Okay. The reason, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so as long as those numbers are positive, we would be able to move forward with the transaction based on the ordinance language
I
we would bring forward.
Okay, I really appreciate that. I don't know how many people would appreciate going down memory lane, but when this city hall was approved, it had failed voters twice, and then it was a councilmanic decision to go ahead and build City Hall. And a lot of people were irate that then, when we were looking at building this, what the cost per square footage is. And so I think knowing that we're still going to come out a little bit ahead is going to encourage people who, this was a difficult thing to see happen financially for the city. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, I have looked forward to this day for years. And so I'm really grateful that, you're watching the horizons and you're, trying to be very careful about timing. And I do like and that's the thing, like if you overthink finance or, what are those called? The finance rates, you can really just regret your choices. And so I would overthink it. And so I would trust you to overthink it instead and choose when, kind of what your refinancing rate is going to look like. But yeah, I think that the questions that I had is, I think you sort of answered it already. This is a window that we have of opportunity, but it sounds like it's not super small. But is there another time that we could do this later? And you already answered the question that we would be saving money now if we did it. So and so that was my biggest question, and it's already answered. So thank you.
And Quan, maybe if I could add a little bit onto that, your answer, you were spot on. The one thing I would add is that there is an opportunity cost for waiting, in that you are accruing interest on higher interest rate bonds the longer you wait. So the longer you wait past the call date, you are giving away some of those potential savings, even if interest rates were to go down, as many project. So while certainly, we don't have a crystal ball, the public generally seems to think that the Fed will cut rates and rates will go down. We're also cognizant that there is an opportunity cost of waiting. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing is, so right now we are not able to apply for federal grants to take advantage of, say, the Clean Energy Act to install electrical vehicle chargers here because we don't own the property ourselves. So we are foregoing opportunities as well when we do not own the building, when there are opportunities either from the Fed or from the state that can help us to improve the building.
Quick question. It's my understanding that a lot of the pricing is built into, or the assumptions are built into the pricing. Like seem to assume that the Fed's going to start cutting rates soon. Has that already been priced in to some extent in the market?
I think,
yes.
Again, with what the other jurisdictions are already going out to market, I think the Fed's decision is already pricing. But again, we don't know by how much and whether it will be one time, consecutive times. So that's the unknown.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and I would just add the general thought is that the September cut is already priced into rates where they are today. That investors are purchasing bonds in the market. But I think it is just September, and we'll see what the degree they do cut. If it's 25 basis points, if it's 50 basis points, that could determine where markets go immediately after the Fed releases the news.
Okay. Especially given the fact that we're not eligible for grants and opportunities that are, substantial and also very in line with our values. I really struggle thinking of any good reason to not do this. So I guess that would be my instruction.
I'm wondering if changing the structure or exchanging the structure has any impact on our credit rating. Moving to
the credit rating from our rating agencies, not just one factor. They consider many factors like the economy, whether we have, as we will discuss later, enough reserve. They will also look at the city's financial and our budget. So there are many factors that they would consider, whether to increase our rating or maintain our AA plus rating.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, I don't have any.
If I could.
Go ahead.
I would add
I was going to chime in.
these are a general, the outstanding lease revenue bonds are a general obligation of the city. And as such, they are viewed the same way as the city's outstanding the city's LTGO bonds are. You know, it's an outstanding debt. If anything, it is a small credit positive because you are going to be marginally reducing the debt load just based on how the bond math works. And so while it certainly could be, positive in that way, when we talk to the rating agencies, we'll certainly, relay the credit strengths of the city in the way that Quan laid out. But I wouldn't expect this to be the reason that we would be, receiving an upgrade for the city.
Okay, thanks. That was the answer I was looking for.
Thank you. This is helpful. It's exciting to always own your own stuff. And there's additional benefits to ownership, which is the grants and things that open up for us. Would we continue, you come up with the ordinance next week and we say, perfect, go ahead, we get 1.8, 1.9 million, 2 million savings, but then the market does crazy stuff. Are we okay with $1 saving or $0 savings?
I think the ordinance set a positive saving, and but there are other savings that we are not even counting right now. Again, like additional grants that we'll get, and also we pay to them the CBO properties a monthly asset management fee. So that's on top of.
No, I meant like if at the end of the day we get $0 because whatever the decision, the calculation here is as of August 9th. What if October 9th or 15th, whatever, it becomes 0? What would we move forward?
Well, again, that's why we have our financial advisor just watching the market. If October somehow turns south by whatever reason, the ordinance would allow us up to a year, so until I think October of 25, for us to have the flexibility to go to market.
But there's an opportunity.
And if I can just respond on the ordinance itself, so the savings threshold is entirely in the council's discretion to set that. The current draft would have it at 0. But you would also be, relying on the judgment of Quan and his team, and working with us to all decide whether it makes any sense to go ahead and pull the trigger and actually do the transaction if it were at, say, 0, or to wait. If the council preferred, the council can always determine that a higher threshold is required. I think the reasons that were described for setting it at 0 is that there are other benefits that are not quantified in there that the city is interested in making sure to capture. But ultimately, that threshold is something that's within the council's discretion to identify. And that's one of the things that we're here to find out from you.
Thank you. So the ordinance is set at 0, and then plus all the intangible, like the non-financial benefits that we're going to get out of this, which make sense. Okay, cool. So
and again, it allows us the flexibility to watch the market, but we believe with what we are seeing with other jurisdictions, I think this is the right condition.
And then there's the opportunity cost, to Matt's point, of the longer you wait.
Yeah, and
the
you
more
keep
interest,
paying
you keep paying
your
the higher,
debt at a higher
that
rate.
difference, right?
That's correct.
And I would add, based on what Kwan mentioned about the monthly payment, when we looked at that earlier, that's about $60,000-$70,000 a year, which if you were to go out to 2039 when the bonds are sold, you're looking at over $1 million in savings just by doing the transaction today. And that's not captured in this NPV savings amount. So there are actual real financial savings that would happen by going through the transaction. This is just looking expressively at the debt service amount.
My point was, like, there's more than just savings. There's the benefit, there's additional things that you have listed up there, which you cannot put dollar amounts quite yet on, but we know we're going to get more grants if we for example, own the building, right?
That's correct.
So that's it. Thank you.
I never get to be the person who talks the least, so I like it. Thank you.
Okay.
For now.
So I'm getting the consensus that this is a good deal, and we'll come back to you next week with the proposed legislation. Okay.
Just a question. It's not going to be on the consent. It's going to be an actual agenda.
Yeah, it will be on your actual agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Kwan.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Alice.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, City Manager, we have a study session for the capital facilities plan. Oh.
I defer to my boss first. All right. The second study session tonight is a continuation of a series of capital facility plan discussions. And as you'll recall, we've had 2 touches at this, and tonight the primary focus is on the utilities portions. This follows up from in July when we talked primarily about transportation projects as well as parks projects. So staff is going to be highlighting the remaining portions, and one of our objectives tonight is to surface any remaining questions for the CFP, and then we'll begin incorporating the feedback you've given us into the overall budget. With that, I'm going to turn things over to our finance director, Kwan Wong, once again to introduce the team and navigate us through this topic.
Good evening again, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Thank you, City Manager, for the introduction. So we are here before you for the third study session on the proposed 25 to 2031 capital facilities plan. I'm joined by my excellent staff, Gretchen, who has really doing magic on balancing the CFP, so thank you. And then Boyd Benson, who will be talking about the utility projects as well as the utility rates on financing those projects. So today we are, again, not asking for action at this time, but I will get your feedback on the identified projects. So tonight's discussion will give you, again, where we have been with the CFP, where we'll be going in the next few months. And then the second area is about the 7-year financing models, including the utility rates that we are going to propose. And then we'll focus on the utility projects, sewer, storm and surface water, and water. And then the last area is facility projects. We're really excited adding this new category into our CFP with the, again, assuming the City Hall will turn the title to us, we will have a lot more facility projects in the next iteration of the CFP. So where we have been, so we updated you with revenues, project costs, and schedules in the CFP. And then we presented the draft CFP to the Parks Board and the Planning Commission and got their feedback. We also briefed the City Council at 2 prior study sessions. And then, so here we are talking to you about the utility projects and facility projects as our 3rd study session. We plan to hold public hearing in the fall. We have a date picked in November. Depending on the schedule, we may add another one. So again, depending on your availability and the time allowed in our October and November schedule. And then we are scheduled to have you approve the CFP in November. So that's the plan. So we will go tonight. I will go to the utility projects, and Boy will walk us through, and I can.
It's really. Oh, thank you so much. This is a very brief overview. You've seen many of these projects before, so we kind of wanted to highlight a few of the changes. So for utilities, sewer, water, storm, the current proposed CFP is substantially similar to the previous CFP. What you'll see is as projects grow, we try to get pre-design done for projects, and as they start to grow, we start bundling them together and making efficiencies. What you'll see is we've seen consolidation of projects. So it may have been a water main here, and a water main here, and a water main here, and now they're part of a bundle of project that also includes sewer and storm. So you'll see consolidation of projects. The ones that are coming up are the downtown utility project, which is in pretty close final design right now, so you'll see construction next year. And then the Bothell High Shoal project, which should be school project. And that's a bundle of, it's primarily water main replacement, but we're also taking care of sewer water. I should have actually followed the slide, but we did update the revenues and project costs and schedules to current understanding. We've completed 2 projects, the Valhalla Neighborhood Utility Project and the Northeast 185th Utility Project, so we've taken those off. And the overall goal of this CFP is to provide shovel-ready permit projects so that when we see opportunities for funding or grants or loans, we can take advantage of those. So we're really focusing on this. So you'll see this in the future. You'll see something that's in a program, a stormwater retrofit program. It's just a preliminary, and then you'll see it named, and it'll be final design and permitting, and then you'll see it go to construction. So we're pretty excited about that approach. We've highlighted the Woodcrest Neighborhood Project that's on the current CFP and the proposed CFP. We've been working to secure additional grant fundings. We put a little green dot on that one because we had questions about water quality enhancement. And are these projects just meeting minimum requirements, or are we looking at expanded requirements? And what you'll see with the new NPDES permit that's come out is we actually have retrofit requirements. So we're looking for opportunities all the time. So this neighborhood has water quality that was installed at the time per regulations. That little green dot is proposed enhanced water quality because the water that leaves this goes straight out the Sammamish River. So 1, it's really good for the project, and 2, it helps with grant funding, and 3, it helps us comply with federal requirements for retrofits of projects. Oh, thank you. Storm and surface water projects, once again, substantially similar. We've updated the costs and schedules. We've only added 1 project. It's been something that's been kind of looked at preliminarily, but the city has a decant station. So what that is over the Shop 1 property near the southeast corner of the I-405, 522 intersection. And it's where if the city has, we use a vac truck to clean out catch basins, and we have sediment and fluid. We can't dump the fluid at a landfill or a place where you just dispose of hazardous materials. You have to first decant, pour off the water. And these are special facilities that settle out material, and they go into King County Sewer, and we pay for it. Not every city has one, so we want to maintain this and make sure it's up to snuff. That is a grant-funded project to get that through design, and then hopefully the same with construction. So it's a pretty exciting, it's a small project, but it's pretty exciting. Once again, moved to Valhalla and 185th. We've consolidated projects like I mentioned. So when you see these SW1s and SW2s and W1s and W2s and S1 and S2s, those are all the programmatic sewer, water, storm programs where like I said, we identify small areas to fix and then we consolidate them together. What's interesting on this one is it's similar, once again, downtown utility project, Bothell High School project. The Park Creek project was 2 projects that we've secured additional grant funding for design, which is really, really cool. So we consolidated those. And then Canyon Ridge Estates, this started out as I think it was SW2, it was a retrofit project. It was just an idea, and we've gone through feasibility, and that's the image up here on the right. And now it's to the point where it's a separate project, and it's going for final design, then construction and grant funding. And once again, this is a project where we have an existing stormwater facility. You can kind of see the outline with the rectangular shape that provides some water quality and flow control, and we're adding additional water quality downstream in that green rectangle. It's not required. It's above and beyond, and it helps take care of the environment, but it also helps satisfy our NPDES requirements. So we're pretty excited about that, and also it's grant funded. So that's kind of cool. And once again, enhance water quality, comply with NPDES, and have projects that are ready for construction seal. Like I said, you'll see more and more of these projects come up where we try to get the design, permits, and cost estimates down, and then we can go for construction. Okay, thank you, Quan. So we've had brief discussions about the proposed 2025-2026 utility rates. The city completed a utility rate study, a comprehensive study back in 2023, 2024, 2023. And from that study, there were long-term average rate increases recommended. And that was to reduce the potential for large increases and large decreases that really impact our community. So there was a 6.25% for water, 4.25% for sewer, and 5.75% for storm. And staff is recommending that we continue with that approach. What this does is it provides enough revenue to get our day-to-day work done and also for projects. And on the next slide, we don't want to go there next, you'll see that even with that, we're still largely grant dependent for some of these. The good news on this, which is very exciting, is we show in the next 7 years we don't go negative. So that's very, very exciting. And the message we'd like to convey is we always try to keep rates low. We try to keep reductions low. But these are the recommended increases to make sure we can continue to, like I said, day-to-day operation and projects. And if we have issues with grants, we can always postpone projects if need be, but it takes care of what we need done. We don't have rate comparisons at this time. I can say from informal discussions with other utility providers at like SB board meetings, everyone's looking at rate increases, especially after last year. There are folks that are proactively addressing, well, they're actually absorbing King County wastewater treatment rate increases, which are higher than what we are proposing. And that's because we have a pretty good fund balance there. So we're trying to reduce the impact of those 5.75% rates up to, I think it's 9 in 2031. So we're really trying to prepare for that to soften the impact to our community members on city sewer. And there may be one we skipped. Thank you. So this has a lot of numbers on it, but I think it's really telling. I'm just going to walk you through. The upper table, that's the user fees. That's revenue. It's a lot of revenue. And that's rates. And then the next column is facility charge. Operating reserves and the other reserves are required by code. We're meeting those. They're pretty big numbers. So they take a big chunk out of what is available to work with. We have to have those funds ready to go. And if we have zero above that and we still do operating, that means we have $0 to do projects. So we're really trying to make sure that people understand that you may see a fund balance that is a little higher, a couple $1 million higher, but that's because we have to, by code, keep those in place. And we've talked about these before. The operating reserve is, if for some reason there's no funding from rates or the rest, we can continue to provide services. The emergency reserves, if something fails. The capital reserve is if there's a project that isn't working out as well as it should be, and that's based on project estimates. So what's interesting to me is the bottom table, the estimated annual debt service. That's also in kind of reserve, but it's those last two columns, unsecured grants and available fund balance. We put an asterisk on available fund balance 2031. That's what we think we'll actually have in the bank at 2031 of available funds to work with. But when you look at water, that's assuming we get a $2.5 million in grants that are currently unsecured. We have a pretty good shot at it, but if we don't, what does this mean? It means, well, we won't be able to do $800,000 worth of work, but we're not in real big trouble. We can still get most things done. For sewer, once again, we have a pretty good ending fund balance, available fund balance, and that's because that's decreasing every year as we cushion the blow from increased wastewater treatment rates. But then when you get to storm and surface water, it is a very aggressive project-based. We're trying to comply with the requirements. You heard a very good discussion about the Waynita Restoration Project, which by itself takes a good chunk of that $20.9 million unsecured grants. And so when you look at the storm fund, we're looking good at 2031. We have a positive available fund balance of $7.1 million, but over that time period, we're going to have to secure $21 million in grants. We're all optimistic. These are all good projects. If we don't secure those grants, it doesn't mean we're, $15 million in the negative. It means we'll defer those projects as we go. But we're very excited about the stable funds for the utilities. Anything to add, Corner?
No, it's in a good condition.
Okay. Thank you.
So right now we'll be talking to you about the facility projects.
Okay, the proposed CFP also incorporates the facility project section. It includes 3 projects. So the first one at the top is F4. Department of Transportation funds the rebuild of the public works shop almost entirely, and only a small portion of the construction is being funded by cities' utilities. Construction is slated to be completed in 2025. The next one is F5. City Hall window improvements is planned to install anti-glare film on the City Hall windows. It is eligible to be funded by real estate excise tax dollars, which is, we call it 1, that's first quarter percent. The last is F6, the courthouse security building improvements is planned to improve building security. The safety of each visitor at Bothell's courthouse is of utmost importance and priority. It is also eligible to be funded by real estate excise tax dollars. On July 30th, Council provided feedback on the staff's proposed park and transportation projects, as well as capital operating programs included in the 2531 CFP, and was provided with Parks Board and Planning Commission feedback. Tonight, we presented the proposed utility and facility projects. Now, this CFP contains 92 staff proposed facility, park, transportation, and utility projects for the city. The chart here displays the 25 through 31 summary allocation of estimated funding sources on the left and capital spending on the right. The total proposed funding is comprised, project funding is comprised of secured capital funding sources of $439 million. $339 million is non-utility capital revenues, and $100 million is utility revenues. 51% or $220 million is funded by non-city resources such as grants, other agencies such as Sound Transit, developers' contributions. What this means is that for every dollar being spent on capital projects, only 49 cents is city money, such as real estate excise tax dollars, impact fees, and or special levies, which amount to about $219 million. And that's what I have for now. Now, these allocations may change again when we come back for the public hearing, because as the project progresses, the numbers may change just a little bit. We'll present you with the final numbers at that time. Thank you.
So again, the good news is we have a balanced CFP with $438 million and of different grants and utility funds and the REIT funding. So I'm happy to take your questions and look forward to October when we will deliver both the operating budget, the CFP, and also the utility budget before you. So that again, we talk about a city budget, not just one budget, but we'll consider operating CFP and utilities. So I look forward to our conversation in October. With that, I'll open up for questions.
I have one question that came to me as throughout the presentation, and that was on the proposed project funding on this slide. That's in thousands of dollars, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's millions.
Just wanted to clarify. I was like, that's really affordable. No, and so sometimes just a little note like that, like somewhere on the bottom in thousands of dollars can be useful because,
Thank you.
like I could translate it, but also the extra help is appreciated too. And this has taken a lot of work. I can tell that you have all put a lot of work in this, and I really appreciate it. It's great to see, and I really appreciate the discussion at the end there of like percentages of city funds, because it really just speaks to the people on staff who worked really hard to get grants from other agencies. And so thank you for all that good work and for putting this all together for us. So I really appreciate it.
Something that struck me in the presentation was looking at, our end balances and hearing news about other jurisdictions nearby that have a water main leak that causes a landslide, and then the whole city has no water or a boil notice or whatever. Like, oh my gosh, the things that can happen when you're working on this order of magnitude of infrastructure is so big. Mm-hmm. So I'm really grateful that you're thinking about embedding good principles of efficiency, but also longevity and thinking about the future. I'm grateful that staff has a really deep knowledge of the resources that we have at the city, like the decant operations that we do, that not every city has. And so I'm really grateful, like Councilmember Aldrich said, just the amount of detail that goes into this and how intersectional it is between city departments. And so I'm glad that it's all coming together here. Thanks.
Just gonna lock in this side of the table as grateful. Good work. Thank you for doing it. And I appreciated the note, Boyd, about working on projects and making sure that it's not just done, it's done well. It's, I don't want to say future-proof because that's probably impossible with utility projects, but just what can we do that is the best improvement we can do here, because that's important. So I appreciated that. Thank you.
Can I just sneak in with another question that I didn't write down, which is why it's coming up now. Were there any other culvert projects that are included in the CFP or that should be or that you'd like to be? Because I know that at the state level, that's a big conversation happening for cities.
Yes, so the 35th culvert, it's about 35th and 236. That's in final design and permitting, and we did secure a Public Works Trust Fund loan for that. There are several culverts associated with Bothell Way widening project that the Capital Group's working on, and those could be potentially grant funded, and they're very important projects. When you drive at 240th and 35th, so just south of the 35th culvert the city's working on, there's a private development. It's actually pretty cool. Some people don't always care for development, but when it's done right, it can really help things out. So this is a 47-unit plat where they're basically reconstructing a stream, and it is really cool because it's not even there. It's the old part of the old fish hatchery stuff. It's worth driving out to see. So they're daylighting stream as they cross 240th. They're putting in a fish culvert, and that actually is facility charge eligible. So the city supports that type of work, and as part of SW2, it includes fish culverts. So if someone does some of that work, sometimes they can pay less facility charge fee because they're doing work on behalf of a capital project. That's also kind of interesting because there's intersection improvements there that culvert will help. So fish culverts are really important. They're really, really expensive. If you don't get grant funding, it's hard to do. But yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah. Can you, in all of that great detail, I missed what the cross street was on 240th?
So 240th and 35th.
And 35th, okay.
Yeah, so if you go out and about, it's the northeast corner. I haven't been up there in a week or two, but they've graded the site out. You'll see a channel. They're putting in large woody debris. They're working closely with Fish and Wildlife and Muckleshoot. And
so it sounds like you're saying
project.
it's a good field trip.
Yes, ma'am. It's worth seeing.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was going to ask for a field trip as well.
They're putting in separated bike lane. They're putting in curb gutter sidewalk, landscape strip. It's like I said, in my opinion, this is development done right. They're taking care of existing deficiencies, they're helping the environment, and they're going to help with our non-motorized network, so it's pretty cool.
Sounds like they are going to be a showcase at some point.
Hope so.
Which is fascinating. Can I interject with a couple comments and questions? Okay, didn't want to butt in.
Yeah.
I didn't want to butt in. One, I kept hearing enhanced water quality. I want to do a happy dance over that. That is just like music to, does it get any better?
Yeah, this is really, can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
Okay, this is really important because right now, when you think about water quality and what's required, it's 80% of total suspended sediment. That doesn't really mean much except for turbidity. It has side effects because you take out the sediment, you take out other things, but contaminants of emerging concern, 6 ppdq, and the rest, they have different types of way of capturing that. Some of that's organic, like compost amended biofiltration. So, or secondary treatment with modular wetlands, or some of these different types of cartridges. So the two projects that we showed with the green areas, that's the type of stuff they're doing. So it's above and beyond the flow control that was required at the time or the water quality, and it should actually help take care of some, like I said, the contaminants of emerging concern.
It's impacting our little part of the planet in a very significant way, and I really appreciate it.
It's neat.
And then I think council, I heard that approaching the finances on this way, that we would be able to add more items on the CFP. Did you say that? Down the road?
Down the road, but right now, in order to do something else, we have to switch projects.
Right. Okay. But down the road, we could add more CFP projects.
Again, this is a 7-year plan, so
7 years goes by like.
We will be able to add projects, in future years.
I think at that point, the city council should give you guys a standing ovation, because that is great. I do have a question. You already answered my question earlier about City Hall and what the cumulative cost it would be. Looking at The two properties that are left that we bought from North Shore School District and Multi Boulevard, we still owe some money on that. Would it be when someone has I'm going to use the term very generous, loosely, because no one has free time. I would be dying to know, in the end, what we spent on that. Not including, I don't want to know about the cleaning the soil, but just paying back on those properties. What did we actually end up spending on those properties?
I think we would need to do homework on that.
But sometime in your
Yeah.
free time where you're like, okay, I don't want to deal with this project, I may be asking for a big lift, and I apologize.
No.
But
I
that would
think-
be good to know.
I think the community deserves the answer, so we will do homework.
Thank you very much.
On that, because I'm curious myself.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it.
I'm going to sneak in and add, when we get that breakdown, can we talk about, I really appreciate the note on the CFP. It was 49 cents city dollars versus 51 cents grants, all that stuff. So a breakdown of where the money comes from, I think, is also helpful. I know we got for the cleanup grants and stuff, but
Cleanup.
yeah, it's hard to dig through the old documentation as someone who tried and said there's got to be a better way. So thank you.
It's going to be a term paper instead of just homework.
I don't have anything to add. The presentation was super thorough. I really appreciated it. And I just want to echo the sentiments of my fellow council members and just appreciate the work you've done.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. And I think with that, we're adjourned.